welcome to Close Listening. I'm Zach Morgenstern, joined as always by silent co-host Ludwig von B. And today we're talking about a very special album to me, Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show by Neil Diamond, featuring Sweet Caroline. I say a very special album, but I actually just listened to it for the first time. Before I was collecting records, I was collecting CDs, and I tended to get greatest hits CDs. So I had this collection called Neil Diamond Gold. And though this is a greatest hits collection, it only covers his time, I believe, with Uni Records, which runs from 1968 to 72. So some pretty good ones, as well as some live performances of earlier songs. But a disproportionate amount of this collection comes from this record. So I guess I felt like I'd heard about a half of the songs on these before, and I felt that was good enough to feel a connection with this album, even though I'd never listened to the actual album in full. Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show actually gets a fairly negative review from William Ruhlman of allmusic.com. And the funny thing is, reading his review and then listening to the record, I get what he's saying. But just because I get what he's saying does not mean I do not believe this is a great record. So this album opens with its title, the iconic hit Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show, a show of Neil Diamond drumming up hype about this evangelical minister, and then he gives this evangelical impromptu speech in the middle of the song. It's a sermon, but one given in like the most safe, loving kind of theological tradition. And when Neil Diamond does this speech live, he's expanded it to say, white or black, gay or straight, rich or poor, short or tall, God's children all. Way back when I first heard this song, I wondered kind of what was going on with it. I wondered if Neil Diamond was a Christian fundamentalist. I hadn't picked up on the, fairly ubiquitous fact that Neil Diamond is Jewish, but he just had this fascination with the South and with ministerial language. And I think why the song hits just right is because it is neither parody nor sincere. It's him engaging with this identity because he finds it fascinating, he finds it beautiful, he finds it musical. So it's playful. It's not seriously trying to convert you to religion, but it's not, mean-spirited satire either. It's just Neil Diamond having fun exploring. Now, William Ruhlman's critique of this record is that while Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show is a great song, the rest of the album had to be hurried out to accompany it, and thus he viewed a lot of the songs on here as rushed. And what I kind of found is, yes, a lot of these songs have very minimalist lyrics, but nonetheless, they come out sounding very beautiful. And the other thing is this album sort of tries to be a concept album more broadly about Neil Diamond's fascination with rural America, with the South. And in that sense, because of the simplicity of a lot of the songs, it doesn't fully succeed, but it does enough that I think it works as a concept album, and it's really good to listen to. So track number 2 is called Dig In. I could see why William Ruhlman was critical of this one because Neil Diamond's vocals on it are kind of mumbly. It almost sounds like a demo, but that also gives it some personality. And when his vocals do get a bit louder, that makes them all the charismatic. The organ in the background is good, and it certainly has a bit more personality to it than the most generic blues songs. Similarly, track 3, River Runs, New Grown Plums, is a bit mumbly in the vocal delivery. So again, you could wonder, is this a rough draft or something? But the overall musical ambience ends up being quite impressive. It feels like one of those opening songs in a movie where they're like, this is what life is like in the village, like at the beginning of Moana. Track number 4 is called Juliet. Again, we have quite minimalist lyric. This one has some na 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 na, and there's a lot of la la la's and na na na's on this record. But again, it just comes out musically really well. There are these really simple but beautiful piano riffs. There's some nice organ in the background, which has been steady on the album since Brother Love. I guess trying to constantly have that church organ there gives the album a theme. There's also this cool choice where rather than having a bridge, there's this little moment that's not quite a guitar solo, but it's just a very distinct sounding guitar riff. When I got this record, I was in my first romantic relationship, ended up being the person I ended up marrying. That it was kind of like a breakthrough moment for me, because before that moment in my life, I was the kind of person who was too shy to ever date anyone, and suddenly it was happening to me. So all these very simple songs about suddenly being in love and just kind of being awestruck in the moment were really powerful to me. So it's funny, yeah, when I listen with like my nerd brain on and try to analyze a song like Juliet, I'm like, there's really nothing here. These lyrics are so minimal. But if you just listen to it and if you're in the right moment, it just captures something about an angsty romantic feeling. The thing I most love about Neil Diamond's voice is that it has a natural angst to it and it just comes out so beautifully. Track number 5 is called Long Gone. So this one brings back some of the gospel references in its lyrics, and the chorus is pretty catchy. The concept of the song is basically, I want my soul saved, metaphorically speaking, from this bad relationship. So this could be a great song. The problem is Neil Diamond is not a particularly edgy songwriter, so he's not like, you're taking me down to the fires of hell. No, the lyrics are very subtle and not particularly daring. That said, it's a very catchy chorus, and he does the same thing he did in Juliet, where having this little moment with a distinct sounding little guitar riff. Track number 6 is one of the true classics of the album. It's called And the Grass Won't Pay No Mind. It's about two lovers appreciating the moment of being alone in the meadow. So it also builds on the rural concept of this album. We also, I think for the first time on this record, finally hear some full orchestration. There's lush strings in there. There's a great little drum riff. The backup singing is wonderfully soft. Like everything about the production on this song is perfect. I mean, if you want to criticize something, there's a lyric about soft, wet kisses that makes the singer sound like a dog, but I don't know, dogs are cool. Track number 7 is called Glory Road. This is another great one. It's one I like to sing. And it's a song of Neil's that he has said is about, identifying more broadly with his generation, with the 1960s wandering spirit. The only problem with this one is maybe it's a bit short. It gets to a part at the end where he's just talking about traveling to different states. And while it sounds very good, it rolls off the tongue nicely. Maybe you just want a bit more there. And I guess maybe there's not a bit more to say because even though Neil clearly identified with the 1960s moment, he wasn't necessarily accepted as one of the cool hippies. He wasn't truly immersed in that culture. So this song is kind of about appreciating it, but maybe a bit from the outside. Track number 8 is called Deep in the Morning. This one kind of sounds like Neil Diamond's early hit, Cherry Cherry. It has the production one would expect of this era of Neil Diamond music, orchestration, and backup singers. So it ends up sounding interesting, but it might just sound straightforwardly catchy and like a hit if Tom Catalano, the excellent producer on these early Neil Diamond albums, was willing to say, what if I don't do things my way, but actually go back to Neil Diamond's original brill building style? That might bring out the best in it. Track number 9 is called If I Never Knew Your Name. Now, this is very much an example of minimalist lyrics, but it is one that made this greatest hits collection, and I absolutely understand why. What's really special about it is I think it's the first time where Neil Diamond sings in falsetto. And there's something incredibly relatable about it because it's not a falsetto that naturally fits. It's not, Elvis showing off his falsetto in a rockabilly song. It's not a Beach Boys doo-wop song. No, it's this beautiful slow ballad. And then Neil Diamond awkwardly strains for this falsetto note. Again, he has this angsty sound to him. His voice is almost breaking, but it comes out and it sounds great, especially when it's backed up with the strings. And again, listening to this as a shy person who was opening himself up to being in a romantic relationship for the first time, I connected to the mood in this song so well. And even while the lyrics are so simple, the rhythm of the lyrics in the little chorus is absolutely great. Don't underestimate Neil's ability to generate these really smooth flowing phrases. I'd love you all the same, but I'd have you to myself, wanting nothing else, knowing that you're mine. Track number 10 is called Memphis Streets. This is a joyous song and it brings in some harmonica along with some signature Neil Diamond trips, just, about being joyful in Memphis, quite possibly heading off to start a music career. Track number 11 comes in full swing with the country theme. You're so sweet, horseflies keep falling around your face. This one is going for an old-fashioned country feel. It's slower than I expected it to be. It almost sounds like Hank Williams, except it has a silly element to it. The lyrics are basically a parody of country style cliches. So it's a pretty good song on this one, and there's an even better version on Neil's live album, Hot August Night. Track number 12 is called Hurtin' You Don't Come Easy. This song, the lyrics are a bit more detailed than some of the minimalism we got elsewhere, but there's still a bit too much on the vague side for the song to really stick with me. It's well done. It's just at the end of the album, nothing about it really stuck in my mind. I wondered if this one, when I looked at the lyrics, is about the end of Neil Diamond's first marriage. He was moving out to Los Angeles to make progress in his music career, and I think that was one of the main reasons his first marriage dissolved. So that's vaguely hinted at in the song. So I don't know, that's certainly possible. The original Prince of Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show ended there. So if you want to say this is not a great album like William Ruhlman did, well, you could say the album in its purest original form didn't end so smoothly. But luckily, they updated the album a couple months later because Neil Diamond had just put out a single. And that single is a song you probably haven't heard of called Sweet Caroline. This is the first Neil Diamond song, unsurprisingly, I ever heard. And it was just the best example of that angsty voice. I remember hearing it as a teenager and so identifying with that vocal delivery and assuming it must be a contemporary pop song. It just sounded so youthful. I guess I just assumed it was a boy band singer singing it or something. But then I found out, no, it's a song from 1969. And I think the one thing that has to be emphasized about Sweet Caroline is it's kind of been ruined by how popular it is. So what do you think when you hear the word Sweet Caroline? You probably think dum dum dum, which everyone chants at the Boston Red Sox games or whenever it's played in a public setting. But Sweet Caroline has some of the most beautiful orchestration you'll ever hear in a pop song. Those violins build up to the explosive chorus, and then the bum bum bums are announced with a trumpet. So, when that gets reduced to a drunken crowd going da da da, you're missing the point, the character of the song. And as much fun as it is to see Neil Diamond live and sing along with it, sometimes you forget how amazing the song is in its original form, and just hearing Neil's voice break with that angstiness, man, it's an amazing delivery. So basically, Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show is some of the best sounding 1960s music you're going to find, and some of the most expressive vocals. And I think music critics can lose sight of that because, say for And the Grass Won't Pay No Mind, which is a pretty good poem, and Brother Love's Traveling Salvation Show, which is an original concept for a song, people would mostly look at these and say, these aren't the most interesting pop songs. There's not much going on with lyrics. But Neil Diamond wasn't someone who was trying to overwhelm you with his wordplay like Bob Dylan. He wasn't someone who had a particular message, but he's just someone who connects to the human spirit very well. The emotion in his delivery is just amazing. And for that reason, this album is an absolute classic. I'm Zach Morgenstern. This is Ludwig von B. See you next time.